This is One on One. We are honored to have our friend Guy Sterling, the author of a very important book. It's called The Famous, the Familiar, and the Forgotten, 350 Notable Newarkers. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
And it is an honor. You've been one of the great journalists and authors connected to New Jersey and the city for a long time.
Thank you.
Why this book?
Well, I thought I would tie it into the city's 350th anniversary in 2016. And, you know, as a longtime Newarker, and you're a Newarker yourself, you know that we like to think that everybody passed through here at some point.
That's right.
And to some extent, they have. So I thought I would research that. I love the research. I'm researching every day. I figured, okay, let's find out who really lived here. Let's find out who is a Newarker. And we all can come up with a dozen off the top of our head, but once you start to dig, you find out some really, really amazing people going back many, many years.
Want to do the famous real quick? Georgette, run me through this, because we have some pictures we're going to put up. Thomas Edison, go, Newark.
Thomas Edison lived here from 1870 to 1875, essentially learned how to become an inventor in Newark, married a Newark girl. His first wife was from Newark, went to Menlo Park and then to West Orange.
I'm going to jump, how about this? Not just famous. Mobsters, a whole bunch of them in here. Richie the Boot Boyardo is in here, but also Jerry Katina.
Yes, Jerry Katina.
Why is Jerry Katina relevant?
Jerry Katina was the boss of a major crime family in the United States, and that's one thing that Newark didn't have a lot of. Major name, not a well-known name, but a major name in organized crime.
There's another name that, Georgette, you don't have this one, but it's one of my all-time favorites, Longy's Woolman. Longy's Woolman, Newarker, very important mobster. Why?
Well, Longy's Woolman was essentially the head of the Jewish mob, and was a Newarker, a very famous Newarker, well known at the time. Story goes that Jean Harlow was one of his girlfriends. I don't know if that's true, but I'm not going to dispute it. Sat in on all the major decisions that were made in his day.
And one of the first names here that I see, it's interesting because my dad was thrilled that he was in the book, but his picture is not here. This is not my dad. My dad's over here. But this guy is infamous.
Yes, he is.
In city history, this is U.J. Adenizio, the mayor of Newark, from what years?
Ended in 70, we know that.
Yeah, by the way, excuse me, my cough.
12-year
because
congressman.
he served from 1962 to 1970. He served the United States Congress with Congressman Peter Rodino. Rodino or they were considering whether it was Rodino or Adenizio was going to be the mayor. And who am I talking about was considering whether they wanted to support one or the other. Who am I talking about? Mob guys.
Mob guys.
Mob guys were considering who they thought would be the mayor, and they picked U.J. Adenizio. Yes. And why did Adenizio say he wanted to leave Congress?
Because Newark was where the money was.
This is real. He said, I can't make any money in Congress, and he sure as heck did make money, and what happened to him in the end?
Yeah, he went to jail.
For being connected to the mob and cutting some deals with the mob. Francis Day.
Francis Day is a fascinating story. Francis Day was a cabaret singer, worked at Prudential, was seen by a producer in New York City, said, come to England, I can make a star out of you. Took her there in the 30s and 40s, became one of England's biggest stars on the stage and screen, and at the end of her life, when she couldn't be Francis Day anymore and really wasn't appearing, took another name, totally denied who she was, died in total obscurity to the point where not one obituary appeared on her in an English newspaper.
I'll tell you, watch how we jump around here.
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Yes. Well, Whitney lived here a short time.
Was she otherwise from East Orange or no?
Yes, yes. But the house is no longer there. I went to see if it was. It's not. But, was born and lived in Newark for a short time before the family moved to East Orange. But the family, her parents, John and Sissy, had been in Newark before that. So Sissy's in the book as well.
How'd you do this research?
You got to dig.
How much did you dig?
2 years of my life, 16-hour days, microfilm in the library. Steve, be honest, there were times when I would come home at the end of the day and my head was just going like this from following microfilm on the screen. Digging, books, census reports, city directories.
Arrest records?
Arrest records,
mob
yes.
guys,
Well,
criminals.
yes, absolutely. Jerry Catina's record, his rap sheet, was in the Newark News morgue that is on microfilm at the Newark Public Library. And I thought, one of the things that I insisted on for myself in this book that was if I couldn't get your address, you wouldn't be in my book. I want people to be able to look at this book in the anniversary year and use it to go back and see where people lived. I'm not going to tell you every house was there, but Newark does have an older housing stock, and a lot of the houses are there. I've been to a fair number of them. And so I wanted to get address. I couldn't come up with an address for Jerry Catina. Now, later on in his life, he lived in South Orange. That, you know, that's kind of well known, but I needed to come up with an address for him in Newark, and it's on his rap sheet.
Well, you know, Guy Sterling did this too. He came up with addresses, and Georgette, I don't know if the pictures are here. I do know there is a picture of, is it Jerry Lewis's house?
His apartment house.
His apartment house. Joe Pesci's house. Talk about Joe Pesci.
Well, I actually talked to the owner of the house when Joe Pesci lived there and told me they knew him in the neighborhood as Little Joey. Large house out on the corner in the North Ward.
That's my neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he moved over, believe it or not, I thought he lived over in Belleville.
He
moved
did.
over to Belleville.
He did. Yes, moved to Belleville, but
Yeah,
Norker.
which is like the suburbs to us.
Yeah.
It's an inside joke. How about this one? Philip Roth, the great Philip Roth.
Yes, Philip Roth lived at a couple places in Newark, not far from the high school where he went, Weequahic High School. The day we went out to take a picture of his house, there was a worker getting the place ready to rent. There was a for rent sign in the house. It does have a historic marker on the front of it. And we asked the guy if he would like go inside the house so we could take the photo of the house without anybody in, and he said, no, you got to wait till I'm done. So we waited till he was done. We took the photo, and Philip's Roth house is there and presumably rented now, and someone's living in it.
Our young boys, Chris and Nick, were fascinated by this one.
Shack.
Shaquille O'Neal, Newarker, Brick City. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, lived here for 12, 13, 14 years of his life, maintains very strong ties to the city.
Came back and raised a ton of money for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Newark.
Absolutely, very active.
Got a lot of help. Go ahead,
very active in Newark. Likes to come back. Likes to see his friends here. Has hired some people from Newark to be on his team, and considers himself a Newarker.
Ooh, what about one of the great performers? Say that again.
Still has relatives here.
What about Queen Latifah?
Wonderful lady. Wonderful lady.
Did you? Why do you say that? Do you know anything about her?
She allowed me to put her photograph on the cover of my book.
Talk about her.
It's not something you can just do, but multi-talented, a singer, an actress, civic-minded. Again, another person maybe more associated with East Orange or Irvington than Newark, but started here.
We're proud of her Newark roots.
Very much so.
One of the other guys on the cover is this gentleman right here. As a little kid growing up in Newark, this guy right here was in our house many times because my dad was very actively involved in politics and civic affairs and supported this guy for mayor in 1970. Ken Gibson became the first black mayor of a city on the eastern seaboard. Mayor Gibson, Ken Gibson, why is he important?
Well, that for one reason. Also the first African-American mayor of Newark, served 4 terms. A major figure in Newark history, no question about it. Made a difference. Still alive, still living in a house that he's been in for many years. Terrific guy.
Interesting guy. Some of Newark mayors, including Ken Gibson, Sharp James.
Yes.
Legal problems, UJ Adenizio.
Yeah.
Indictments.
Yeah.
Part of the city's history?
Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know how you get around it. Sad to think, because there's really no reason for it. But it's almost like there's something in the water.
There's something. And by the way, Newark has the greatest water ever. Connect Newark water to the breweries.
Newark had so many breweries, particularly when the Germans came. 20, 30, 40 breweries at a time. The Kruger Brewery, Godfrey Kruger, major figure in Newark history. I think he's underrated. I think he's someone who deserves much more study. His mansion that he built up on the corner of Court Street and King Boulevard is still there, unfortunately abandoned. It's my hope someday will be restored. Hensler's, Ballantyne's, Feganspans. Newark was a beer city, and it was made a beer city by the Germans who loved the water here and took advantage of it. We have Ballantyne or Budweiser left, and that's it. But the hope is maybe someday someone will come back and restart that business.
It's a fascinating book. Newark is celebrating its 300th 350th anniversary in 2016. Listen, other notables, I was listed here. My father made it clear to me that he was one of the 350. I was not. He made it clear to me. No, don't even try to explain it, Guy. It's okay. It's all right. I thought you might try, but okay.
Well, listen, I'm going to include you in the 400th anniversary. You're going to be in there. We'll
what do you have,
replace
8,000 names in there?
We'll replace you with your dad. I did, however, find your address in the phone book. So you were listed.
Was
Yes.
it also listed I made the Hall of Fame in my high school? You had that in there?
Probably,
You don't
yeah.
even remember that.
No.
Hey, listen, this is a fascinating book, and for all folks, whether you're Newarkers or want to know more about Newark, this is the book. Guy Sterling is the author, the famous, the familiar, and the forgotten. 350 Notable Newarkers. This is good stuff. Guy, congratulations.
Thanks for having me,
You've done
Steve.
a great public service to all of us, particularly those of us who are aficionados of the city. Thank you very much.
You're very
Great job.
kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJIT has been provided by NJIT, TD Bank, the Fidelco Group, United Airlines, Verizon Communications, the Northward Center, and by PSE&G. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato at NJIT has been produced in cooperation with FiOS One News.